So, thank you for tuning into the Live Inspired podcast. And today we have my very first guest. I'm so excited to introduce you to Fallon Lev. Fallon is a style and branding coach. She is a yoga instructor. Her love language is making people feel seen, feel confident, feel celebrated. To me, she's just a beacon of support and motivation and confidence. And I'm really looking forward to having her as my first guest because she has got quite this story to share. Fallon uses her personal style, her visual voice, her overall vibe, and her self image to just promote brands and personalities of all kinds. And I'm honored to be sitting with her here today. So without further ado, welcome, Fallon.
Thank you, Olivia. I think I almost forgot that I'm your first guest, and what a huge, incredible honor that is. I do not take this lightly. I'm sitting
Yeah.
up taller, just feeling a sense of pride for both of us.
I know. Be cool. Be cool. We're cool. We're cool.
Keep it cool.
I'm not nervous at all. It's
Good.
um, yeah. So, Fallon, I've known you for just a few months, and you've already made a huge impact in my life. And I found you through a mutual friend of ours, Alex. And I sort of watched Alex's own transformation happen. And when I had a conversation with her of like, what's your secret sauce? It was Fallon. And that was months ago, honestly. And then we had an opportunity to just cross paths in person. And I approached you and I said, Fallon, I have so much on my heart and I have this big dream for myself and I need someone to push me off this cliff. And I just know it's you. You just have this way about you. You just really make people feel seen and supported. And I'm really happy to be working with you myself. But why I really wanted you to be on my podcast and be my first guest was because you shared something just this past October. It was a 5-year anniversary of a pretty huge life event for you. And when you shared that on your Instagram feed, I like stopped in my tracks. It's like, I am already feeling emotional. I cannot believe that you went through such an insane experience. And it just is a testament to when you meet somebody at a point in their life, like where you are right now, I just see this confident, sexy, successful woman that I'm so drawn to. And you forget that that's one dimension of a person. And there is so much lived experience underneath that. And when you shared what you shared, I was just floored. And I immediately felt like this is a story that needs to be told. So I would love for you to tell us about who Fallon is, or maybe who Fallon was before October of 2020.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. I think that's so true just about what you said. Like when you meet someone, you meet that version of them and you have no idea like the story, the path, the journey that they've been on beforehand in order to become the person they had to be in order to present themselves in that way. And I think that is a big part of this conversation. I would say I I kind of joke around and say I was born confident. I am a naturally very confident person. I am very positive. I happen to be very optimistic. If you meet my mother, you would see she's exactly the same. So that's just like my natural state. And I feel very, very grateful. Um, Going through the accident, my biggest fear was that that light was going to be taken away from me because I had this really traumatic experience. For those of you who don't know my story, in 2020, I was hit by a car while I was driving my Vespa. I was left on the side of the road in the fetal position and I wasn't able to move my legs. And it was a hit and run. And it was just one of the most shocking, isolating, embarrassing, shameful experiences that I could have gone through alone. Like, I remember sitting myself up and just, like, watching people continue to drive by and just feeling so helpless, and that felt like a true rock bottom for me just because of that feeling. of feeling so alone. I can't explain why there was shame, but I felt embarrassed. Anyway, I think because I had that low, 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 the rest of my experience was just like almost like a high. Everyone that watched me go through the experience was just so, they couldn't understand how I had such a positive attitude. And I've said a lot of things like, I mean, I've had 4 years to heal, digest, process, move through every single emotion. But one of the things is, I mean, it's really easy for me to say now, I was able to have an optimistic perspective because from the beginning, I was told that I would walk again. When I was met on the side of the road by the ambulance, I was asked like a million times if I could wiggle my toes. And every single time I was able to wiggle my toes. So I kind of always had that hope. And I feel like I don't know what my perspective would have been if I would have had a different situation on my hands. Um, but one of the things that I really did really well, and I think like my biggest message that would come through that experience was just I totally surrendered. And I really just allowed myself to be seen in that incredibly vulnerable state. I, for some reason, felt the need to showcase and share every single aspect of my journey. Like from day one in the hospital bed with no two front teeth, I just was all about being present in community. And I really allowed myself to receive the support and the love from the community. It was absolutely beautiful to watch the way the San Diego yoga community really showed up for me. And yeah, it helped me so much. So I feel so deeply that there's so much power in healing, in togetherness, in community.
Mm. There's so much to say about everything you just shared. First of all, thank you. I know
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's clear that it's something that's really important for you to share. Take us back to that day, like that specific day. What was happening in your life before you got on your Vespa? What was your state of mind? What goals did you have for yourself? What was your frame of reference at that point in your life?
I love that. So, yeah, it was 2020, peak pandemic. And I literally can remember looking at myself in the mirror. I put up my cute little jean shorts, crop top, my husband's company, Be Kind Vibes. And I was just going to run out to go a yoga studio in OB was having an event. One of my girlfriends was performing. And it was just like a quick, I was like pretty conservative with COVID, but I was still in that space of like, I don't know. Anyway, um, and yeah, it all happened really, really fast. But as far as where I was in my life, I had just got online with my business like 3 months prior. I was in the middle of doing like a breathwork certification. I had released my first course on confidence and not to say like peaking in my career, but I had this momentum. I was excited. It was like something brand new for me that I was really ready to like fully jump into. And then it just felt like all of that was taken away from me, and I was, like, literally left in a hospital bed for 3 months. So, it was kind of this mourning process of what I thought my life was gonna look like this, like, excitement. I saw so much possibility in, like, the life that I could create, and then I find myself literally in a hospital bed, unable to move my legs. But what I did really well was I definitely still held that vision for myself. And I continued to really show up every day as my best version of self. I'm so proud of the person that I had to become in order to navigate that experience. Like when I look back through a bird's eye view, I'm just like, wow, I have so much pride for who I was. I have so much pride for my family, the way that my mother showed up for me, the way that my now husband was there for me. I just have so much love and gratitude for every single human that really showed up for me in that as well.
As you should. And for context, at that point in your life, you were making a full living as a yoga instructor, correct?
Yeah.
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 So I can imagine that throughout the pandemic, that was already a huge shift for people that were working in that industry, like any sort of people facing industry, that those restrictions came down and people were having to pivot all over. So I can already imagine the level of flexibility and how much your business had changed up until October.
That is so true, and it was really hard for me when I first learned that it'd be 6 months until I would walk again, and then a year until I would do yoga again. And that just felt like, how do you wrap your head around that? Yes, as a yoga teacher who that is her full-time occupation. And I think like one of the biggest breakthroughs for me within that healing journey was, I think it was even like my husband who said, just like one day at a time, really slow things down. And I had to allow myself the gift of presence and not try to wish away this experience. I always knew that there was going to be so much healing and so much growth from the experience, and just like not trying to stress and worry so much about the future, but really harness my energy to really heal my body, my heart in that moment. I think was like one of just the best kind of pieces of advice that I think is so relatable for almost anyone that goes through something hard, one day at a time.
Yeah, I love that because it really is easy, and I'm completely guilty of this, to start projecting all of these negative consequences. And I can only imagine if I was in your position and I had already done so much work to shift my business, and then you're just out on a ride. I can just imagine that you're in OB. For people who don't know, like, OB is just such a fun, easygoing beach town, like the best vibes. And then that happens. And so take me back to that moment of impact. You're on the side of the road, and you mentioned earlier that you felt shame. Where do you think that came from?
I think the shame came from knowing how not reckless, but I feel like it's I just don't think that I understood how not invincible I was to be on that type of, almost like a motorcycle. And I was like, you just painted the picture so perfectly. I was so carefree. I was in my own lane. I'm a really confident driver. I don't take any responsibility for the accident. Like why did this happen to me? But I just felt yeah, I guess maybe it was like more so just like embarrassed that this was happening to me. Like, it was almost like a "why me?" cry moment. I do think I had to kinda go there with myself, like, really let myself just fall open in order to pick myself up and rise up.
I think that's a metaphor in itself, right? Like you just said, I'm a really responsible driver and I was in my own lane. We can so often just be in our own lane, crushing it, vibing on our Vespas, like sun is shining. And then life happens and somebody swerves into your lane and literally knocks you off orbit. And I know that you mentioned earlier that this was a hit and run. So I can only imagine being in that position and then feeling left,
Mhm.
like discarded.
Yes, discarded is a really good word. And I think for my whole life, I felt very worthy and
Mm,
loved and valued, and I think that is where the shame came from because I was just like, "How could someone do this to me?"
yeah.
Like, "Why me?" Yeah, and I really didn't love everyone wanting to know the lesson right away, like, "Well, there's gonna be a lesson in this." And I really chose to detach from needing to define the lesson that it was happening, why this happened to me. I do believe that that is going to reveal itself throughout the course of my lifetime. I love the version of myself that I was through that experience. You've never seen a softer side of me, especially online. If you've been to my yoga classes, you know I have that softness, but as far as the way I present myself to the world online now, like it's very much so like empowering, confident, but I loved that I had that opportunity to be seen in my vulnerability. And I believe that it really allowed me to connect to so many other people. I know for sure it did. I received so many beautiful messages, and I know that I've been able to help and inspire so many other people on their journey. I still get messages to this day whenever someone has any type of injury is difficult. Anything that you go through in life that kind of takes your power away or throws you off your center, it's challenging to navigate. And every time people reach out to me, they're always like, "Oh, I broke my foot, but all I could think about is if you could do this, then I can do this." And I think it's so important to have those people, to have those expanders to see what's possible for them. to see like what other people have navigated, and it kind of gives you your power back and helps you really believe in what's possible for you. And I think that is what I did really well is the whole time I believed my healing was possible. I really trusted the doctors. I was, like, very obedient as a patient, but, like, I really trusted them. Whatever they told me to do, I did it, and the timeline that they gave me, it was literally spot on, so I think that also, like, really built that trust. I think that it's so important to believe that healing is possible for you, no matter what you're navigating.
Wow. I want to go back to you're in the hospital. They tell you you will be able to walk again. But what were your injuries?
So I fractured my pelvis in multiple places, and I was given an external fixator, which you know what it is, but the majority of humans do not know what it is. So it's like these two handlebars that were sticking out of my hips. It's like very alarming to see. It was basically like we're going to put you into surgery. Your pelvis could heal itself. You'll be fine. Or depending on how bad it is, you're going to wake up with an external fixator. And I woke up with the worst case scenario. And I just remember, like, lying down and, like, I fell in love with every single one of my nurses. I have so much respect for the job that you do. You know, I literally my whole yeah, I couldn't do anything. Like, I remember having my chapstick close by because that was, like, one thing I needed. But, like, going to the bathroom, doing everything a human being would do, like, that was all taken away from me. And so it was like, yes, something I had to really, like, step into really quickly and adapt. I was also covered in road rash because, like I mentioned, I was wearing cute jean shorts and a crop top t-shirt. Lesson 1, if you're gonna be on a bike, like, dress appropriate, take care of yourself, be responsible. And then I had chipped my teeth, and, I mean, the road rash was actually, from what I can remember, the most painful. Every doctor that walked in, anytime I would see a new surgeon or whoever would come into my space, they would, like, have some notes up on my wall, and they would just be like, "Oh, you're a yoga teacher? You'll be fine." And I know it sounds like nothing, but when you're in that type of situation, like, having someone reflect that back to you is so empowering. It really did. I don't even know if they realized it in the moment, but they were giving my power back. Every single time someone said that to me, it reminded me of who I am. I was like, "You're right. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I'm Fallon Lev. I can do this." And it was a really empowering experience that luckily I was able to have throughout.
That is beautiful, and I really appreciate that, and for context for anybody who's tuning in that doesn't know my background, I am a registered nurse, and so because of that, I'm also curious what other feedback you would give, like, what were some of the most impactful moments for you when you were hospitalized? What were some of the most disempowering moments for you when you were hospitalized, and what would you share to anybody who maybe works with other people in these situations?
I can't remember very clearly. I just remember having so much love for the compassion of the nurses and just feeling really seen by them. I would get so sad when they were going to switch shifts, but then the next person would come and they would be equally as compassionate and sweet and loving. And they were really patient with me because I remember they tried to sit me up the first day and I was like, no. Like I was convinced that I couldn't sit up because I had this handlebar in my hips, so my mind just couldn't comprehend how that was possible, and they really just allowed me to kind of come through or come to, like, whatever truth I was gonna have on my own time. So I didn't feel rushed, I didn't feel neglected, I felt very seen by them, which I think is really beautiful. I don't really feel like I had a bad experience. Like, I had one bad experience with an ambulance driver, but that was, like, a young kid and driving recklessly with a girl who was also very traumatized of being in an accident, like, 3 months prior, and, you know, it was 2 anyway, so that there was a situation, like, I had one bad situation, but besides that, I feel like all the other experiences with every surgeon, every nurse was really beautiful.
Well, I think that in itself and I'm, like, kind of laughing because I could just imagine, and, I have so much love for EMTs and ambulance drivers, but you never know. I mean, it doesn't have to be anybody who works in that role specifically. It could be a nurse or a doctor or whatever. And I think the reality is that when your job is to deal with these crises back to back to back all day, you forget. that this is a huge moment, a huge and vulnerable moment in someone's life. And I've been guilty of that before. I mean, I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I don't take any birth for granted. But I'll tell you, when we are slammed, when we are busy, I really have to pull myself back sometimes and be like, whoa, let me be so mindful in how I show up, in what I say, and in how I support this person because I'm thinking of a million different things. I do this all day, every day, but this is a huge day in this person's life. And anything that I say can leave a really long lasting positive or negative impact. So I do appreciate that. It sounds like you started from the moment of the accident going through your initial recovery, like, you were in a really great headspace. Were there any dark moments for you along that process?
I think I was definitely sent home from the hospital a little too soon. And I mean, I take responsibility for that. It was in the middle of the pandemic, so I wasn't able to have visitors. And I definitely showcased the ability to transport myself off the bed onto a toilet because I was still strong in my upper body. But that was when I was being guided by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. So when I got home, my mom and my husband had no idea how to help me. And so there was definitely tension of like me not wanting anyone to touch me, but also needing them to touch me. But it was just based out of fear and not having the proper tools or feeling equipped to really deal with what we were dealing with. But I was like, I really use social media as a tool, and I put something up on my story reaching out for help, and my friend's husband, who is a physical therapist, came over, helped me really understand how to use the, like, trapeze bar, and then I had 2 other yoga students of mine who were nurses. They came over and helped my mom, like, learn how to I had to have her change the wrappings on my burn. But anyway, so I just had so many amazing people really show up for me, and they changed that. So, yeah, it was like a probably a hard week where we were just, like, trying to figure it out, but then we got a routine, and then it, like, we had such a good flow, and I look back, like, it was literally I was living in a studio. My husband is on our bed, I'm in a hospital bed, my mom is sleeping on the couch. It was like 1, 2, 3, and 2 dogs. And I look back on that, and I just think it was, like, such a beautiful, adorable experience. My husband and I were just boyfriend and girlfriend at that time, and to see the way him and my mom worked together and the flow that we were able to create and just the dynamic, like, the house was just, like, overflowing with love. It was really, really sweet.
Wow, that's beautiful. Because it sounds chaotic, but I do recognize that sometimes in those moments, like, everybody just rallies and they're just all about getting Fallon well, and it becomes this beautiful thing, and you don't have to be in a big giant house or have all this space or whatever, you're all literally in one physical room, like, together, working together. That's really beautiful, and it sounds like asking for help was a big breakthrough moment in your recovery.
Yeah, I did that on repeat, and I had absolutely 0 shame, and I think it was received really well because, I mean, when something happens, people want to help, but there's so often people or the person that needs help isn't willing to A, ask, B, receive it, and I was willing to do both, and it made that reciprocated relationship, like, people love to help, like, when you deny someone the opportunity to help you, you're taking away from both parties. So, yeah, I was really just open and I just surrendered to what was, and the magic and the beauty and the love that, like, really just flooded through that entire year was something that, like, I'll always cherish and always remember.
And what a contrast to the girl who was on the side of the road being left. Somebody hit you, they drive by, and then you described other cars just driving by. And then that contrast to you asking for help and just receiving it full force.
Yeah, I think that is probably like a big part of the story is I know what it feels like to be alone. I know what it feels like to have that sense of abandonment. And then, yes, from that point on, I was just shown the opposite. I had one really horrible instance of humanity. And then I was given so much evidence of like how many good humans there are in the world.
Thank you for sharing that because as soon as I heard your story, I automatically just felt like people are shitty. And
Mm.
I can only imagine what that was like for you. My grandfather was hit in a hit and run accident when I was growing up. And I just remember even for him feeling like, how could somebody do that? How could somebody hit another human being and then drive off? And sometimes in those situations, you kind of have to zoom out, or it can be helpful to zoom out and just imagine maybe what's going on for the other person. Not that there is ever any excuse to do something like that. And I do believe in karma, but at the same time, to be in a place in your life where you would injure another human being so gravely and run, like, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I think like you said, I trust in the karma as well. And I just there a lot of my friends and family got very involved wanting to find him, but there or him, I'm sorry, but wanting to find the driver. And there was just no evidence. It all happened so fast. There was no video, no camera, anything. And I think like my gut knowing was like, I just don't want to wear this anger. I don't want to carry this resentment. This is not something that I'm willing to bring with me into the journey. Like I knew that there was nothing that it was going to serve. Sure, there's a part of me that would have loved to have that $1 million settlement, but beyond that, what was I going to get out of that experience? Like that person has to live with what they did for the rest of their life. I didn't really need to have that kind of closure, I guess, beyond just trusting and knowing that it wasn't gonna serve my healing forward, and it was just this, like, strong decision that I made internally that I was going to create a separation from that resentment, and I do remember doing forgiveness journaling and forgiveness meditations, but I think I do believe that I my body just kind of released that.
Hmm. Was that something that happened towards the beginning of your recovery, or has that taken a long time to come to that?
No, it was right away, and I think because so many other people got so worked up about it because like you said, it's like you hear this story and you're like, "How could someone do that to another human being?" It's actually so painful, it's hideous, it's horrible, it's disgusting. But I think because so many other people were worked up by it, I, like, kind of put up this wall and just chose for myself that I wasn't going to kind of buy into it or get wrapped up in it.
I can only imagine that that impacted the speed of your healing too. I don't know that I would be able to let that go. I think I would still be holding on to it, honestly. Like, I think that I would still feel anger that that person took something from me.
That's interesting you say that. I'm sure there's a part of my body that is still holding on to that. I think that that's something that I could, years down the road kind of have to navigate and release. I will say, so when I woke up from my surgery, I don't believe surgeons always typically have the best bedside manner. And I just remember literally opening my eyes and the surgeon blurting out, "You will not be able to have a vaginal delivery." And in that moment, it did feel like they had taken something away from me. And but then I look at it, it's the same thing with like, okay, well, I always knew I'd be able to walk again. And I look at it and okay, yes, my life has been dramatically affected, but it could have been so much worse. I still am able to have a pregnancy. There's things that happen to us in our life and it takes things away from us. It changes things, but it doesn't always have to be dark. It doesn't always have to be the end. Like you have to be willing to kind of see the tunnel. You have to be willing to kind of see the light. And it does oftentimes require just like a rewiring and like choosing to be open to that path, choosing to be open to that truth. And because, yeah, I mean, I feel like that was the biggest thing for me, like, or those two big things. Like I knew that I would be able to walk and I knew that I would still be able to go through childbirth if I chose to. Ask me if it was different, I have no idea. I really cannot tell you, like, how I would have reacted. I almost feel like you were about to say this, but so many people are like, "I don't know how you did it. I could not have done that." But I believe that nobody before you're in that situation, you don't believe it's possible. You don't trust that you could go through it. But when you're put in that situation, you you are shown, like, how incredibly resilient the human body is. You are shown, like, how incredibly resilient you are, like, you really have to kinda, like, rise up, and you meet a new version of yourself. It was, like, a huge identity shift for me, like, I never knew I would be capable of going through something that difficult, that hard, that traumatic, and then coming out on the other side. But going through it obviously showcased that, and now I have such a stronger confidence in myself, like I said, I've always been really confident, but this is like a deeper confidence, like, I know that life is full of hard things, and that is the human experience. I'm going to continue to navigate challenging situations in my life, and I'll always have that experience to kind of reflect back on and be like, "Okay, if I did that, I can do this." And I think that those situations are really powerful for people to kind of, like, see themselves in. And I do. I see it as a gift. I see it as a blessing, an opportunity. And in the end, I have a lot of gratitude for the experience.
Wow. So, what I heard from all of that is when you're faced with an insurmountable challenge, especially something that was caused by another individual, it's really easy to think this person took something from me. This person ruined my life. This person XYZ. But what your experience was not that you didn't have some of those thoughts, but how much has been added to your life because of this experience. It's almost like it broke you open, and through that came this ultra confident beacon of light and energy, like brighter than you ever were before. It's like this bright positive radiance, and that was always within you, but it seems like it really took this experience of you getting tested, of being in this super dark place, of feeling discarded, of feeling all that shame, all of the nasty, dark, ugly things that live within all of us, totally ignited when you're left on the side of the road. And then through your healing and through your journey and through your forgiveness, 'cause it sounds like there was some forgiveness that happened there and just releasing, you just became this version of yourself that was waiting all along. And that's so inspirational to me.
Thank you. It's so interesting you said broken open because if you want to like get to know me, like get to know my heart, my soul, go back and read my posts. I wrote so much throughout my accident. And I honestly had this vision of writing a book. And the title that I had in my heart was Broken Open because that is exactly how I felt. It was like broken open to this new version of myself and meeting that version of myself. Yeah. And that's why I say it was such a gift. And when I reflect back and I think of like how much I was able to really grow and expand and evolve. And I love just going back from the beginning of the conversation when you said, we meet people at different seasons. And I think about entrepreneurship and how much we kind of compare ourselves to other people's journeys. Like you stepping online and comparing yourself to me who's been on here online for 5 years, like there's an impossibility that's going to always make you feel defeated. But now that you know my journey, like where I began and what I had to do in order to get to where I am, it gives you so much more respect and honor when you really unpack and allow yourself to see people for who they are, like an actual human. And you're able to dissolve any walls, take people off pedestals, and allow yourself to be in this like even playing game. And I know that's like a huge pivot to entrepreneurship, but I do feel like, you know, you have to be willing to meet people where they are and you have to be willing to meet yourself where you are.
Hmm. Well, I mean, that is your superpower. I really believe that. And I'm curious if you had the power to go back and erase that entire day, that entire experience from your life and never have been in that accident, would you do it?
Oh, what a cute question. That
Cute is like,
I just no, I love the question, but I don't know that I'm gonna give you the response that you may be looking for. Like,
I'm not looking, I'm just curious.
yeah, I think there's plenty of other life experiences that would have given me a similar confidence and a similar proof in my possibility and like what I'm capable of. I think because it affected so many other people in my life, like to watch how heartbreaking it was for my mother, to watch like how scary it was for her to go through that. Like, I can't even, I hate that feeling. So the way that I had to put other people through so much fear and so much pain and so much sadness and grief, I would not choose that experience. For myself, I believe that I could do it again. I believe, yeah, I have this stronger, deeper confidence, resilience, and, you know, you don't have to go through something as traumatic to kind of learn that about yourself. But I do think it's important to take the opportunity to reflect and have an awareness and to really trust in your capability and trust in who you are. I remember getting a bracelet that said, "Remember who you are." And it was people giving me my power back. And you can take your power back just as easily. You don't have to have someone else give it to you. But that for me was over and over that like proof in the pudding of what I needed in order to really see through to the other side of what I was navigating. So trusting in who you are and just like really anchoring into your own personal power is something that we get to strengthen, build, and really stretch every single day just by showing up and navigating the everyday human experience.
That's an awesome answer because I think some people would say, "No, I wouldn't, because it made me who I am." But it's so true. Yes, we're all gonna go through hard times in our life, and it's gonna look different for everyone. That doesn't mean you have to experience profound levels of suffering and grief
Yeah.
to get these insights, and that's huge. So, thank you for sharing that. And then I just have a couple more questions for you. So, what would you tell somebody right now? Maybe there's a person somewhere right now that's laying in their hospital bed with external fixators and they are defeated.
Yeah. I mean, that makes me just sad thinking of a person in the hospital bed with that type of situation. Like, just there's so much unknown and it feels really big and it is really big. And I think it's important to let yourself feel that, to feel every single emotion that's going to show up for you because it is hard and it's okay to feel like, yeah, like just allow yourself to feel deeply. But at the same time, try to kind of savor is an interesting word to use, but like really invest as much energy as you can into the present moment. Be with yourself in the experience. Have compassion for who you are, have compassion for your body. Believe in your physical body, believe in the human body. Like that was one of the most beautiful things for me is watching, being in absolute awe of what the human body is capable of. Um, and just to be with yourself, to really hold yourself and to tenderize the healing experience. I think that so many people just like wish it away or want to push through, but allow yourself to receive the support that you're deserving of. Allow yourself to rest, allow yourself to receive. And yeah, I think I'll just use what I said, but just take it day by day.
That's awesome advice. I think slowing down, I heard a lot about like slowing down in your story and just appreciating every little moment like, wow, chapstick. I just want my chapstick, That was big. Yeah, just you just really slowing down. I think anytime life serves you any sort of situation like that, you're invited to really slow down, and there's this inclination to wanna rush through it because you just want things to go back to how they were, and in most cases, they never will, so you kinda have to let these things change you.
Yeah. Be willing to evolve. That's a good one.
Yeah, be willing to evolve. I really like that. Okay, Fallon, what inspires you? Where do you source inspiration?
I think I source a lot of my inspiration from other women. Like,
Mm.
I get really turned on by seeing other women in their power, by really watching other people expand into their bigness. I'm definitely that person that's like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Like, I totally believe that in my core. I know what's possible for you. I know it's possible for me. I trust in so much of the unknown. But the more that we can really support each other, the more that we can celebrate each other, lean on each other, ask for help, ask for support. There just has to be this thread of love and personal power, but also like power that we can borrow from each other, inspiration that we can share and like really collaborate. So, yeah, I'm inspired by so many beautiful humans in my life. I'm inspired deeply by my mother. My mother is 75. She looks like she's 40. She dresses like she's a knockout. Like she's the most beautiful, stunning human being I know, inside and out. And she really inspires me every day.
I'm feeling all the feelings of right here because I resonate with all of that. I also have an incredible hot mom who's about to be 70. And yeah, I think that there is a superpower in women and women coming together and expanding each other. And it doesn't even just have to be women either. And that's the whole goal and ethos of my channel and what I'm creating here is that sometimes all you need is to see someone even one step in front of you and realize that while your circumstances are never going to be identical to someone else's, just seeing somebody who's a step ahead of you or maybe 10 steps ahead of you and knowing that it's possible changes everything.
It really does.
So, thank you for sharing your story and thank you for showing me what's possible even from a creator perspective, believing in me and empowering so many others and just being that mirror. I'm so thrilled that you agreed to be my first episode. And is there anything else you want to share?
I mean, I think this was a great, incredible gift for both of us. I think we'll both remember this moment forever. And I think that this is just the beginning. And I am so excited to watch and witness the way you expand and the way you evolve.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. And I just want to leave all of our listeners with one thought, and that is what if it all works out?